All right. Hi. Welcome to Free Flow. I'm happy we can finally do this. The idea of it is we're just flow on some topics, but I've always enjoyed the conversation that you and I have had around the idea of religions and how they affect society and how it affects the individual as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the talking as well, and I'm so happy to be on the.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's start off, I guess, with something easy with the idea of, Christianity. I think Christianity has such a huge hold on this side of the world as well. Let's just go back to how did it all kind of form and when, like the real basics of Christianity. Like
the way I try to understand the whole thing is when we put a fixed split for a while between what was practiced and done by Jesus himself, and the development after that is a little bit different. It took so many streams, like some of them were okay, some of them were brilliant, some of them were bad. But the best way to understand any kind of ideology or religion or whatever, you have to go to the best of your knowledge, to the original, the founder, how he thought, how he understood his vocation, his role. I don't think Jesus meant to create a religion. I think he wanted to get in relationship to people again, as God incarnate. My point is, I don't think he wanted to create any systematic theology. I think the simplicity of his original message got, I won't say polluted, but got a little bit out of control. But there's always a chance you can go into the original message, which I do believe that they're coming from the scripture, like the 4 Gospels, the 27 different books of the New Testament. It gives a concise idea of how he was thinking and how his disciples thought about him. This is the foundation. So whatever offshoot comes out of this is debatable. You can say they're following Jesus' teaching or they're not following Jesus' teaching. Like with the Crusades, for example, the Middle Ages. I don't think this is what Jesus meant by anything. It doesn't have to do anything with Jesus. Jesus meant to wage spiritual war, not a physical war with swords and shields and killing actual people. No, he wanted to wage spiritual war against our enslavements, but not against human beings. He wanted to save human beings.
So what would probably be the closest you could see to how Jesus lived and his teachings? If we were to look at Catholicism or something like that, or even in a church, or what would it be?
In the first 3 centuries, Christianity was almost one big movement. There were offshoots, but they were not separate. They were part of a big theme of Christianity. They were bad ideologies, but they were not separate. They were Gnosticism in the 1st and 2nd century, and these people actually were more Hellenized way of thinking about we wanted to escape this world. This world doesn't belong to us. We need to escape this prison. This way, they denied any kind of physical blessing. Basically, any kind of physicality to us is evil, including having sexual relationship, including eating meat, drinking wine. All these are bad stuff created by evil gods. This is one of the offshoots. On the other side, another offshoot, an offshoot of Judaism. They became Christians, but they kept almost all the idea of Judaism. And they didn't believe in Jesus was divine. You wanted to keep stuck in the Old Testament. When you have to do rituals, kill animals, offer sacrifices, they wanted to keep the whole Old Testament. Putting old shoe after your feet have been grown up.
Okay.
So it's a torture.
It doesn't actually fit to the daily life.
The whole legalistic system. But still, I do believe that in the first 3 centuries, they were not separate as much. They were still one big church. But after the 3rd century, this is where a lot of councils, church councils, they start meeting together, they start having their own problems. And the church becoming politicized a little bit. The Roman Empire got their hands in the church. At that time, you couldn't tell exactly where is the church and where is the Roman Empire. Especially at the time of Constantine, at the beginning of the 4th century, fractions starting to show up.
So there's infiltrated to a different...
Yeah, when you get politics in the church was meant to invade politics and submit our world to the joy and the blessing of God. If you do the opposite, you get politics to invade the church, not the church invading the politics. Like Christianizing politics is fine, but politicizing the church is not fine.
Okay.
Like heaven should control earth.
Yeah.
Not earth dictate what heaven should do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but the two need to be together.
Because eventually they are one.
Yeah.
But who is the leader? And the politics, they have their own dirty tricks, they have their own stuff. So if the church become politicized, every bishop or every pope gonna have his own political agenda, and this is where the whole Middle Ages came from. Like when popes fought with kings and queens over authority.
So can you have religion without politics, do you think, or are the two married together in a way that...
I think you can't run away from politics. If you consider Christianity as a religion, you can't run away from some sort of ideology that governs your life. The healthy alliance between the two, when actually your spiritual needs dictate what your politics are, not the other way around. So it's fine to become a minister or a prime minister or a president or a king, but your allegiance should be to your spiritual meaning in life. Like you can always get carried away by how much authority you have, how much you can kill whoever you want. Like if you're a king, you have the authority to kill, to forgive, to let go, to steal, to corrupt a lot of people. But if you're under guidance of your spiritual idea that no, I should be a good person, I should be serving my community, this is where heaven comes in, actually controlling the narrative. So it's okay to be a believer and a president, but it's not okay to be a president pretending to be a believer.
They definitely have to have, it seems as though even the human condition, it's having different parts of the mind try to talk.
Yeah, we're always having these dualistic things. We have bad parts in our life or inside us, and like usually try to put it in as if like on the left shoulder you have a devil and on the right shoulder you have an angel.
Right.
This is kind of a symbolic way of making it. Every one of us has his bad moments and good moments. And nobody's perfect and nobody is evil up to a point of being satanic or devilish. You can, like you start neutral, but you can choose every decision you make in life, it leads to either or, like a way of being good, more advancing in life, more good to yourself, to your family, to the people around you, to the whole community, or bad decisions sometimes also get into road to hell, basically.
Yeah. I always relate back to Buddhism or something like that, because it seems as though every religion or every teacher over time, their story branches and you get different sects of different of the same religion. But do you think that that's a healthy process too? Do you think that that's where we're going to, should the Bible be evolved? Should it be, looked at in a different way, or should it always try to come straight back to the roots of?
Well, I look at it as a tree. So any ideology or religion starts as a seed planted by the founder. And the tree goes off the ground, out of the ground, becomes a stem, and then branches. Unfortunately, some branches go bad. So you can't ignore the whole tree. Like, I'm not against development, but you have to have a reference when you can go to the roots and compare the fruits with the roots. At this time, you know which fruits are bad, which fruits are following actually the teaching of the family. So, but they are one big entity. Like I can't, for example, like in Buddhism, I can't say that Buddhists are bad or no. They have, like every single religion in the world, they have good stuff and bad stuff, and good developments and bad developments. Like for example, the idea of letting go of your being captured by passions and stuff up to a point that might become a problem. This is good for Buddhism. But the way, all the way up to letting go of anything in the world and looking for the ultimate nirvana, which is basically nothingness, I'm completely against. Gnosticism that started in the 1st and 2nd century were almost the same. You're escaping this world. This world is bad.
Seeing the body as evil again, almost.
Exactly.
That tone.
So but for the spiritual part is fine. But the physical part, ignoring your physical needs, ignoring your relationship with the person you love, ignoring getting married, loving your kids, basically it's like monk. I have my own reserved ideas about the whole idea of monasticism, or like being a monk or being a hermit living in the middle of nowhere. I don't think this is our vocation as humans. Our vocation is to be in link with God, but spreading God's blessing to the people around us. Being married is nice, it's happy. You live a happy life, you have good kids, that's fine. That's amazing actually, that's a blessing. At the same time, after you die, it's not the end of it. Because as a Christian, I do believe that there is second coming of Christ when we get our physical bodies in a more glorified way in the second coming. So dying is a transition between this world and the world to come. I don't believe that the world to come is in heaven. I do believe that the world to come is actually when heaven come to earth.
Right.
The second coming. When they become one.
Almost like if everything's an expansion, then the contraction of everything almost, and that could be
not
seen.
Contraction. I would say, like imagine like two balls of existence. Heaven, which is like a higher reality, and earth is a lower reality, and they intersect at certain point. Or used to be intersecting. This is what the Bible mentioned in the Old Testament, Eden. Eden was the intersection between heaven and earth. And it was a project that was meant to, like, the whole two worlds would merge to become one big, involving the whole earth, and maybe the whole galaxy, maybe the whole created universe. We don't know the limits for the project. But the project got aborted early on. And somehow there was a disconnect between heaven and earth. And this is where earth became devoid of the beauty of divinity. When God, Yahweh of the Old Testament, left Eden, it became just regular earth. And earth by itself needed the source of life. If you take that off, all things gets corrupted to some extent. So we have this mix right now in our world. We see beautiful kids, we see animals, flowers, trees, they're all gorgeous. But animals die, trees wither, disease, epidemics, volcanoes. So we have this mix. And when you look to the bad side, you say like, this is bad stuff. I don't want to stay here. This is the monk or the Gnosticism idea. This is bad world. I want to leave it. I want to go spiritually. But we're not meant to be spirits only. We're meant to be spirits and bodies. And this is what Christianity makes the whole difference. That's why I don't believe it's actually religion. Because religion is usually an abstract idea that gives you hope that when you die, you're going to go to some place else or a better place. And Christianity, unfortunately, a lot of practice Christianity now is the same. We lost track of the main message of the Gospels and the New Testament books, when they actually, our ultimate hope is when heaven comes down to earth and they become one again, under the kingship of one king, where our bodies gonna be rejuvenated again, resurrected again. Because we have the story of Jesus. He died and he rose again from the dead. Right now, we hope to die and go to heaven. How about resurrection? Where's the resurrection part? Where's the body part? The body part is missing, unfortunately.
But the idea that we're not in heaven, we're not merely spirit, we are also human, and to live within the human condition and not try to escape from it. And that, as we were talking about Buddhism, that idea of nirvana or snuffing out the flame, it creates a certain intention that can be harmful. Like, and as you say too, it's if you're wanting to be a monk, even in the Christian faith, and like let go of your whole identity in society, I think it's maybe a healthy practice to do for a little bit of insight, but I don't think that perhaps it's something that...
Not a way of life. Insight is fine, because you don't want to be imprisoned your passion as well. So greedy that your whole life goal just to be healthy, collect as much money, and have as much sexual relationship as you can, and live. This is a sensual life. This means that your life is meaningless, and you're trying to acquire meaning by the physical world, which is not meant to be. I think the physical world needs to be invaded by heaven. And once they become one again, like Eden, this is where you enjoy the physicality. Right now, our physicality is weak. We get sick, we die. But it was not the original plan. The original plan was actually glorification for us, animals, and trees, every living creature.
So I always come to this idea that after this, what's the time that it's named something? This point in time where heaven unites back with earth, like the not the resurrection, but the
second coming.
Yeah. This is a permanent state then, or
after that we don't know. According to our information now, it should be a permanent state. But what our vocation will be at that time, we don't know. But we know that we're gonna be ruling the universe in the presence of the king.
Okay.
So you're gonna be like princes and princesses. Every fictional story, almost in Disney, capture the same idea because we're living in a Judeo-Christian culture almost. Right now, most of the Christianity is within the West, and it shaped the Western culture so much up to a point that almost every movie you watch, if it captures you because it has a glimpse of what the original promise is. Like Marvel movies, for example. They're all goddess and goddesses almost, which our ultimate hope for the future, that we're going to become strong enough, beautiful enough, just enough to rule the world. So that's why it captures us. Like the whole Marvel's thing is not meant to be gods and us. It's meant to be, this is the inspiration. We want to be like Captain America. We want to be like Hulk. When he incorporate his human part with his green part. I think this is how good movies are made.
There's the archetype, it seems.
Exactly.
That follows, our imagination seems to follow the same trends that we see in the Bible, that we see in all religious texts and stuff. Could there be comparisons? I think, when you look at Star Wars sagas and everything, they've been so popular because they have the hero's journey so accurately depicted in it. We ourselves are on our own hero's journey.
Exactly.
So I think that...
But the issue is our hero journey is relying on having the archetype of the ultimate hero. To make sure you're moving upward, you need to have a direction. And you need to have a scale or a measure. And unfortunately, in absence of God, you don't have a measure. Like in absence of a divinity, like what's good? Maybe it's good to kill every other sick human. So by default, we're living our own evolution and get rid of sick people. So whoever is breathing now, you're gonna be healthy.
Right. It seems like on paper that would be some type of...
Yeah, so like this is the whole idea of eugenic studies in the beginning of the 20th century. Right?
Yeah.
That they were thinking the same way, like we should just boost the evolution. Make all weak human, sick human, bad stuff just go away, kill him, or prevent them even from breeding, as if they are experimental animals. But in our hearts, this is wrong. We always aspire for a better. But is it a better for my own good, but for the dismay and destruction for my neighbor? No. The best way is to be good to yourself, to your family, your friends, your community, your country, and the whole world. So to get it in a centralized way like this, you need to have a center, the hero of heroes, the hero that guides you. So this is why it's always in the Christian thoughts over the ages. Christ in you. Christ lives in you. He's like the ultimate self. You know the discovery of Copernicus? In the Middle Ages, when everybody was thinking that the sun circulates around the earth.
Okay.
And he found out it's actually the opposite. The sun is the center, and earth actually circulates around the sun. The Christianity is almost like a Copernicus revolution, but in a spiritual world. your ego, your social self that you interact with people with, this is not your true self. If you put it in the center, everything will crumble. As if we put the earth in the center.
Okay.
You have to put something ultimate in the center of your soul. And this is where the whole Christianity in the Bible says, Christ lives in you. I live, not me, but Christ lives in me. Like this is where you put the sun.
Right. Orbit
sun,
Christ. You want that to be your center point.
The sun, S-O-N.
You're right.
The sun in the center. And this is your Copernicus way of spiritually. So you have your ego have to circulate around the center. The best one to explain that is actually Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
He used Jungian psychology in Lion King. And the way he explained Jungian psychology, the archetypes, is Mufasa and the Lion King is actually our ego. He sees things. So he sees his kingdom. And wherever you don't see, this is beyond. This is the Shadowland. So he was telling his son at the beginning of the movie, don't go to these areas.
Right.
Mufasa was the ego. Okay? With our social ego. It sees things, it interacts with things, it's good. But it was not meant to be the king. The king actually is the soul of Mufasa when he goes ascend into heaven. And actually, according to Jordan Peterson, the self in the movie is actually the monkey. He's the wise guy who's always guiding the king.
Right.
And he's always there no matter how the king changes. You change the king. You get Mufasa away, you put Simba in. You get Simba away and you move whatever after Simba is. But the monkey stays. The monkey is the self. Is the ultimate guidance. He is the one who actually drove Simba back to the kingdom.
Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
So the merge between your ego and the self is the most important thing. The merge between you and Christ is the most important thing. So Christ is the center. And the more you think you are as ego, you're the center, everything crumbles because you don't have the power to keep everything together. But once you put Christ in the middle, the gravity so strong, the sun in the middle keeps Earth, Mars, Jupiter, everything in place. If you take the sun out and keep Earth, the Earth doesn't have enough weight and gravity to keep everything circulating.
I love that. I always like to look at the micro and the macro, and the example of the galaxies and how larger.
They're the same maker.
And you can see it and have the mind operate in the same way. This, I guess,
whoever
just
created us created the sun and the moon and the stars and everything.
It would make sense.
The atom as well, like the nucleus with neutrons and protons inside.
Same idea.
And the electrons circulating around. It's almost the same design.
So for a working society, I think that just to come back on, because our first segment's almost up here, so just the idea that you need to choose something that's beyond self, but still has an aspect of self.
Exactly.
To keep that center weight, the divine self. And every society seems to have this. And what we'll hopefully come into talk about in this next segment is how you can find this perhaps in different theories or philosophies, how philosophers have moved away from maybe what would be divine and religious.
A lot of philosophers, I guess, they got it right, but partial.
Right.
But partial means, the old story or analogy when the blind people were actually in a room with big elephant and everybody was
They were so close to it.
Small part of the elephant and claiming one guy was touching the legs, and assumed it's a big tree, trunk of a tree, and somebody was touching the tail. They thought it's a hose or something, and because they are blind.
Yeah.
So I guess philosophers are partially blind. They get a glimpse of the part of the stories, but not the whole story.
Right.
And I don't think anybody can get the whole story. We're trying to.